hey, my mind is in pain.
Archaeologists use art to learn about ancient civilizations, which I've always kind of been interested in, that kind of function that art has of like kind of a recorder of history, or can kind of like teach you about a specific time or place, or kind of like inform you about the kind of civilization or society that kind of created it. A lot of like post minimalism and like kind of performance art seemed like it was kind of attempting to make a statement about the current state of art or its society, or like kind of be critical about society that it was created in, or the government, or political and social issues and stuff like that. I'm kind of more interested in how art can kind of challenge how art, I guess, can kind of challenge art itself, or kind of like challenge the modes of
there's
making.
what I'd like it to be, and then there's what I think it actually is, and then there's, of course, it's like, you know what you know what you don't know, and then you don't know what you don't know. And like, since art and the internet have become bound, I have no idea what it means anymore. And like, I sound really old, but I feel like I'm like catching up all the time, and like I don't know what it means to have everything like replicated and reproduced. I still, when I think about art, like think about like confronting something, feeling an empathic response, and like understanding the attitude in which it was made. Or not being able to, and having the interesting part be in the search of that. But that being said, I also think you can't like overqualify the state of the maker. I do think, and this is like kind of the formalism like coming back in, like I also expect the work to like speak for itself. And I don't know. I don't know, like, because on the internet, like, it's really hard to get a bodily response, and that like kind of shuts off a lot of the potential empathic response you can have. So like when I see something for the first time on the internet that I know also exists in the world, I feel sort of like desensitized to it. And so I think art is kind of talking to itself right now.
It's an interesting way to put it.
I don't know. I've been reading The Space of Literature by Blanchot, which probably has like everything to do with what we're talking about right now. Kind of like the space in which work is made mentally, and you are not alone, and you're not going to figure it out, because there's so many different ways to do it, and there should be comfort and optimism in that, not like a futile like apathy developing, but like more optimism, because so many people have tried, and like there are so many out. I mean, we all die, so that's cool. I guess like we all end up with a very similar.
I would say
end.
art's becoming
So
pretty
I think
trendy.
there's optimism in the fact
but in
that
modern
we all
society, I think it's
figuring it
overlooked. I don't think it's appreciated. And I'm not speaking within my demographic. I'm speaking, within the whole world. And I'm also not speaking about art, as just paintings in a museum or paintings in a gallery. I'm talking about art in, the way we design cities, or the way we design parks, and the way we design roads and sidewalks. If education generally got more funding, I think people would be probably less racist. People would probably just generally be more open-minded and accepting, and be more equally minded. Education would probably eradicate a lot of issues with drugs in the world, at least in developed countries like America. Even though the war on drugs is fucking bullshit. Education's probably one of the most important things in my life, and it's the vehicle for how I'm going to reach the things that I want and to be in the place that I want to be when I am about to die.
At least within public education, especially for, I guess, grades 1 through 12. I think that there's a lot of reform that's needed in terms of, I guess, just realizing that not everybody's the same person, that there are certain things that one's more inclined to than the other. And that really, I mean, I've just never felt like grades for school were a reflection of like anything other than you had the ability to like do work.
Or follow these directions.
Yeah, you could follow instructions well. That's what the grades always came across to me as. I mean, I ended my scholastic career earlier than was originally planned, and I think that's just because I guess it depends on, I guess after the grade 12 depends on what you want to do with your life. And for some people, for a lot of people, I think education is very necessary. I think it's a tool that should be more accessible to people, in that, I mean, it's weird. I come from like a long line of like well-educated people. I feel like I'll probably be one of the first in my family to like, if not like graduated with a degree in any sort of thing. And even at that point, comparatively to a lot of my relatives, they probably wouldn't think much of an art degree anyway. So, I mean, education's like damn near like breathing. I feel like if you're aware, like all you really have to do is be aware of your surroundings, and then you should be probably learning something every single second. And something should just like constantly be revolving within you that's building on itself, or even sometimes taking away.
And I think the purpose of philosophy is, overall, I think philosophy was supposed to give everybody the means to develop their own meaning of their life and develop their own faith and not somebody else's, and develop their own God. And I did that, but a lot of people are pretty scared. I mean, with that, I would say fear is probably the most powerful force in mankind. I mean, love itself can be born out of fear.
Well, philosophy is supposed to be like
a lot of
the
times
top
it
of the
is
food chain of like thought, because it's the study of thinking. So that's it. And then what does it have to do with society? It's supposed to like, for what my what my experiences were in college, where that a lot of people are just like use philosophy as a like reasoning that they were like, they'd use that as like a reason why they were like right, or why something was superior than that. But it like right now we're just at a point where there's so many like philosophies and things that exist that you can use like any point of philosophy to like back what you can say. I mean, that's true for like the past like 100 years, I'm sure. But I mean, there's people that use a lot of deconstructionist like ideas. There's people that use a lot of structuralist and post-structuralist ideas. I mean, it's just mostly like language.
There's this really skewed perception of philosophy as this kind of like this scholars hobby. I mean, everybody can fucking think, right? So everybody has formed an idea. So it's just like, I mean, the only thing standing in their way of philosophy is willing theirself to, is just trying to think more about something. You know, people are too fucking afraid to ask why. People are really afraid to think critically about things because they're afraid to die, or they're afraid of what happens after you die, or they're afraid that their life is insignificant. That's why a lot of people don't really, they can fuck with philosophy, but they don't really practice philosophy. I think everybody should practice philosophy. I think that's a good idea. Ultimately, mankind is ruled by the collective conscience of every living person on Earth, and the collective morals and ethics that we've all, you know, kind of subliminally agreed upon or subconsciously agreed upon. But I think if people really gave philosophy a good old American try, then we wouldn't need churches or Catholicism anymore.
To just gain an understanding of the world and internal things that I think oftentimes are confusing or conflicting to what you're told or what you previously thought. And so philosophy is almost just kind of seems like a way of working the things out, or just another means of doing that. And I think that there are a lot of things that can serve the same purpose. I mean, I guess there's almost like a dividing line, because it feels like there are things people care more about than ever, and things that haven't been cared about for a very long time.
We're both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
wild.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look forward...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction that he's taking the country. We can do a better job, and I intend to do it.
Were you a member of Skull and Bones in college with Bush? Were you in the same secret society?
That's all right. Let me answer his question.
Excuse me, were you arrested? Whoa. Is anybody watching this? I'm not doing this. You'll be tased if you do not. Can you let me go? I'll walk out of here. Just let me go. Hold on your stomach.
Do it now.
Put your hands behind your back.
I think if everybody just this situation.
You don't have an option.
I'll answer his question. And unfortunately, he's not available to come up here and swear me in as president.
Why are they arresting me? Can someone do something here?
Let me just say that.
Arrested.
Because it's a very important question.
What did I do? Get off! You know what? Get off! Get the f*** off me, man! I didn't do anything! Don't tase me, bro! Don't tase me! I didn't do anything! Ow! 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 Let me go!
It could be an incredibly freeing sensation to like truly believe that nothing in your life matters, but I feel like a lot of people deep down believe that, but know that it's not like a productive way to live your life, or to like it's not conducive to anything to outwardly and like think that and promote it. So I think a lot of people kind of stifle that feeling, and you almost can gain more appreciation for the things then, because you kind of implement your like own sense of purpose and what matters to you. And you have to make yourself care about it, and then it's incredibly hard to be entirely selfless in a manner. Like, I guess the best example would be like doing something for someone that you really didn't want to do, that even after you do, you still feel conflicted about doing, but doing it because that's what that person wanted. And then I guess in that sense, you take like the back burner to that person, but even then, there's a reason why you're like eating up about it. And then there's a reason why you still did it, even though you still felt those conflictions. So it's like, I guess even on a subconscious level, you deep down imagine that to some extent you can benefit for helping that person. And so it's like, can you really be truly like altruistic? And I mean, I think it's more so like a thing to kind of strive for than to like ever obtain. I don't think it's necessarily attainable. I think it's just something that you can kind of like believe in, and it can be, I don't know, it could be very good. It could be, I think it promotes a kind of general helping hand, and I think people will be more inclined to help and do something if it's viewed as being selfless. We go around and tell people that like the reason why they're helping other people is selfish, and it's like you're literally shitting on somebody for like being what we all like come to agree is like a good person or having good qualities. I mean, it's really purposeless and nasty. Like, it's just, I don't know, I can't see the need to like put the effort in. Like,
I feel it all the time.
Of all
like,
things to shit on, to like shit on.
I guess like sensory wise, like you step into a room and there's an air about it. I see it in the art, like I see it in the way we treat one another. I see it in well, I mean, and it's hard to like blame us because like we've been told at a very young age that like, here's the shitty set of circumstances we're coming into, like, but you can do anything and you should fix it. And then also when you get to a point in your development when you understand that the task is too large for any one individual, and then when you try to make a difference with a group of individuals, it so often falls through, and it takes so much persistence that eventually like we get back to the place where we think, well, I only have me. And when you're in your 20s, feeling like you only have yourself feels crazy because like everything's in flux, and so nihilism, even if it's not like a proclaimed attitude, it definitely like permeates into the way you hold yourself and in the way you regard other people. We are getting back to like formalism where like the thing only has concern for itself and nothing really happening outside of it. And that's not all art being made. I mean, I can certainly think of exceptions, but I see a lot of art being produced today that has like very little concern for anything but its self. And not even like the self of the maker. Like some of it is like so ambiguous and like doesn't really seem to like take on any like aura from its maker, which like Blanchot would argue is a good thing, but like I just don't see it talking to anything. I think it comes from a place of not thinking. I think it exists as long as you can somehow like quiet the mind and feel. I think the body has a lot of intelligence, and to say that it only exists like cerebrally is I think a little bit short-sighted. And I say that because I think the biggest acts of kindness have come from when we try to comfort someone. It comes from like a bodily understanding of like what they might need. And I don't know that the body really wants to gain anything from that. As soon as we like introduce the mind, when we try to overthink like how someone might need something, or when, like, as soon as any like calculation interrupts, I don't know if altruism can function or if it exists. But I do think when we come from a place of like mental,
I think a lot of people are capable of it, and a lot of people practice it. But in the end, I think you know, humans have to work against themselves to be able to do that. I think it's human nature to want for yourself. At the same time, you know, it's 2015. Human instinct isn't a fucking justification for anything you do anymore. You're a human being, and you're born with a fucking brain. You can't say that you did something because it's your human instinct. No,
nihilist might say that.
Well, that's why nihilism is bullshit, and there's no one on Earth that's an actual nihilist. If you were a true nihilist, then you would be dead because you killed yourself.
Yeah, it's a cop-out for sure.
Yeah. Especially fucking adults.
Personally, it kind of goes back to... I think about it from the maintenance end. Like, if you suffer physical trauma, there's no question you will go into physical therapy, and people are completely understanding of that. So I understand mental illness to be like a very like stigmatized thing. As soon as you decide to go in for therapy, not for the body but for the mind, then people are making assumptions about you as a whole that I don't quite understand. I know that the mind is injured more frequently than the body, and so I don't understand why we take so little care of it. I don't understand a lot about mental illness, and I think that's why it gets stigmatized, because like so few people do, and I don't think we'll ever understand the extent of it. And I don't know that illness is even the proper term for it. I just know that the mind requires maintenance, and we forget that and then wonder why we can't seem to move.
What's just as important as the self-maintenance of the mind is the societal understanding of certain things, because that paints a very broad stroke in how those things are handled and dealt with.
Yeah, because if you feel shame, when you feel shamed when you notice something's awry, like, you tend to bury it rather than to like be proactive about it. And so I think it often kind of perpetuates itself in a way that I don't think needs to happen. Why does that feel like such a weighty question? And to what degree are you speaking of it? And because I think we're all ill.
Yeah. You know, society just like either gets on the gun boat or gets on the mental illness boat, and neither of those problems really get rectified.
I mean, like with shootings, it's often toxic masculinity that's to blame, and nobody wants to talk about that. That's the thing. It's like toxic masculinity like doesn't just hurt like women or people who don't identify. It also hurts men. Like, it always makes you feel like you're insufficient, from what I understand. And that level of like trying to compensate and overcompensate like makes you do wacko things. And I think as long as we can like better identify what's going on, then like rather than just like blanket statement mental illness over everything that we don't understand, we can actually like get at the undercurrent, which is more important. I can tell you what I think it actually boils down to. You have to have money, and like the individuals who are most fit to have money, like I get mad at like the patriarchy. I don't think currently liberty really exists for a lot of people globally, or even more locally, like the United States. Although if you ask anyone in any other country, like who's got the most liberty, like they're gonna say without blinking the United States. And I've made a fool of myself trying to argue otherwise. I could say liberty exists in the life of the mind, but then I'd have to consider that I live in a house and I have space and time to exercise the life of the mind. Whereas a lot of people are just really trying to make it all work. And that is the majority of people, and they don't have time or space to exercise the life of the mind, so liberty does not exist for them there.
Yeah.
So like on a personal level, like I can come home from work wearing the really low-cut dress that I wore in order to make more tips from creepy old men, and then come back and feel liberated by the fact that I have a really rich inner life being worked out on the page when I draw. And then I feel free again. But for some people, like for most people, you go to work and then you come back and you're still trying to figure out how to eat, and like you seek comfort where you can find it, but you often can't. And so saying that they also have the opportunity to find it in a mental sphere is unfair.
Yeah, it's like a cruel joke.
Yeah, and so when I say like liberty doesn't exist for the majority of people, it's because like there are forces that are like economic, like social, like it just like there are so many barriers on a global scale, and I don't know how it exists right now. I can say personally, like I have the luxury to make it happen in my study or in the basement with my scary paintings. I don't know. I think about Virginia Woolf, like a room of one's own. Like she argues like a woman can't have a career unless she has like money and a room of her own. You can't create an entire world on the page or however you want without like having a little bit of money. And I think that could, you know, like in an alternate universe it would be some other factor, maybe not money, but like if you count money as like some current, and you count the room of one's own as just space, you have a current in space, and there's always something flowing through it. I think of that when I think about liberty. I think money is blinding. I think power is blinding. If you strip it away from someone, there's still a person there who has just as many needs emotionally as anyone else. In fact, probably more needs emotionally, because they've like used it as like inappropriate bandages for years and years and years, you know, like, oh, well, I can't fix this, so I'm just gonna wrap myself in something I don't need, while the actual wound keeps getting deeper and wider. I think that's what power is. It's just, well, I think about the individuals who crave it most, and I think you're probably in a lot of pain.
Power feels really fucking good. But I don't think power is as important or as strong as control is. You can have a lot of money, and I think money equals power. In almost every way, money equals power. But not everybody with money has control. and the people with control. People often get control and power mixed up, and they're not the same thing, because the people with control are the ones, and not everybody, a lot of people have power, not everybody has control. Control is what I want. I guess you can call it control freak, but I want fucking control. I want control of my life. I want to control all the bad things that happen so that I can make them not happen. I love feeling control. But power is raw. Power is like having a loaded gun, but control is being a marksman. In modern society, power is probably one of the most important things, but what people really want, again, is control. It's easy to have money. It may not be easy to get a lot of money, but it's easy to have a lot of money. But to be able to control the amount of money you have is very special. And all of the people that run America, and all of the people that run the World Bank, and the people that run the world, they've refined that control. They truly have. And I want control. I want power and control. I want to have the loaded gun and be a marksman. And I try. There's a lot. I mean, I'm in control of a lot of things in my life, and I've made it that way.
I don't know, I think it's one of the biggest driving forces in anything. And I think that a lot of like society is shaped around like placement of power and like
or the receiving of power.
Yeah.
There's also a difference between like having power and control over the self and the desire to like control others through power.
But I don't think there's ever such a thing as like real freedom. And even if I was born to the heir to the richest people on earth, as long as my biology and my psychology were the same, I mean, there's certain things in my brain that make me not as free as other people. And there's a lot of things that there's a lot of mental restrictions that I come under because I'm my father's son or my mother's son, and that's the same with someone who's born, since the beginning of people organizing, or I guess maybe since the beginning of man. That's how it's existed. It's designed so that we don't have actual freedom.
I think personally I feel pretty free, just because in the sense I'm not going to hold myself to anybody else's expectations of me. So it's even when there are injustices, I normally don't get that choked up or fucked up about it, because I don't know, I feel like I exist and go about things within myself, so I don't feel limited, but I could easily see how I guess other people do.
Yeah, I guess personally, I don't necessarily feel too restricted or limited, but there's definitely people in
so
this
when I
country
put my leash
feel that,
on Willa
that weight
at the
more
dog
than I
park
do.
while she's still in the pen with all the other dogs, she feels threatened because they're all running loose and she's the only one with the leash on. And so she panics and bites me because she thinks I'm restricting her from like running if she needs to. And I think power ends up being everybody in all of the dogs in the dog park have leashes on except for 3. And those 3 dogs can, like, they have the luxury of running about. They can like bite other dogs' legs without fear of the other dogs biting back. And like, that's what power looks like to me. I want to exercise empathy because I know that's more powerful. I guess like my mistake in the past has been equating spirituality to religion, and I think it's an easy mistake to make, especially if you grew up in a very religious place.
Mm-hmm.
On a summer night around like 10:30 p.m. and I take off my shoes and like run around in the grass, like I know exactly what I am, and I know that's partaking in some sort of like spirituality. And I think it's another thing again where like I have to like let my mind be quiet and let feeling and intelligence be unmeasured and unlocated. The access points are different for everyone, but I think the beautiful part of it is that although we all access it differently, we end up like scraping a similar feeling. And I do think we all can access this like feeling of serenity if we include all of our senses and stop being so interested in the interruption of thought, and understand that like intelligence is located throughout one's body, throughout regions that we don't even understand. We can like spiral down, like reach deep inside ourselves, or we can like go astrally, like we can spiral out, and those locations look very similar. They might be the same place.
Like chemistry and just the different kinds of like chemicals and elements that we're kind of built up of, and how like everything is kind of like I kind of view a lot of like different things like through like just a series of chemical reactions, and like just like the emotions you feel, like being able to see like your heart beating.
Organizing people in any way is the downfall of mankind, but at the same time it's necessary for mankind to even exist. I'm a very spiritual person. I believe there's something larger than myself. It informs every single aspect of my life, every waking minute of my life. Mm-hmm. And I have a word for it. It's called Earth Mover.
He come to me with money in his hand. He offered me. I didn't ask him. I wasn't knocking someone's door down. I was running from that. When I got out, I was in that. I was already through that. I had that. I had the studio. I went to the studio, went to Vox Studios. I had it all. And I looked at it and I said, this is a bigger jail than I just got out of. I don't want to take my time going to work. I got a motorcycle and a sleeping bag and 10 or 15 girls. What the hell I want to go off and go to work for? Work for what? Money? I got all the money in the world. I'm the king, man. I run the underworld, guy. I decide who does what and where they do it at. What am I going to run around and act like I'm some teeny bopper somewhere for somebody else's money? I make the money, man. I roll the nickels. The game is mine. I deal the cards.
I think about my sisters and my mom and my grandma a lot these days. I think like for a long time. I think of my dad too. It's like, it's just, okay, so it's just a really complex web. And I think you start out with the center. Oh, no. You start out with the anchors of the web. So you kind of know like what corners of the room you're bound to. And then as you grow up, you understand that you have to like work closer to finding the center of the web, which is the center of yourself, and you keep building the relationships until you get closer to that. And I think every like relationship that helps you become closer to yourself is part of your family. They're my route to the room, but as I keep getting closer to myself, I see that it involves so many other things, so many other people.
Took over the whole city and shut it down, and to me that looked a whole lot like martial law.
Yeah. Oh God, I can't believe. See, this is why I didn't want to give this talk, because I knew that we'd have this conversation, and now it's on the record. All right, let me take a step back, and we have to deal with it. Let me take a step back and a deep breath, because this is a very painful thing to talk about. So, all over the world, we know, it's well established, the State Department and intelligence agencies engage in theater, and it's what they do, it's spycraft, to create spectacles and events that people may not realize are spectacles and events, but that, well, like the overthrow of Mossadegh in the 50s in Iran. They'll funnel money to protesters, they'll, fly people in to infiltrate protesters, they'll create fake newspapers, and so on. So we know that this happens in countries around the world. I believe that a law has been passed in the United States, I think it's part of the Defense Authorization Act, I need to confirm this, that, now makes it legal to propagandize American citizens. Do we know about that? Yeah, it's true. And is it in the NDAA or is it in something else? Do we know? It's a separate bill. It's a separate bill. And it's been passed. It's now law? Do we know what 2 years ago. So what this means is, and as a journalist to say these words, I can't tell you with what a heavy heart I say them, but we've entered an era in which it is not crazy to assess news events to see if they're real or not real. And in the United States as well as overseas. And in fact, it's kind of crazy not to. Now, there's so much hype about what I just said, and so I want to be very clear about it so it can't be taken out of context. There's, pardon me, this kind of reflexive vilification of anyone speculating about that because they become a conspiracy theorist, right? Well, just bear with me. I've often thought about this because our intelligence agencies, I respect spies. Who are doing, before it got out of control, I believe we need intelligence. I believe we need intelligence agencies. I don't think there's anything dishonorable about being in the intelligence services if you obey the Constitution and the law. But all over the world, our intelligence services are engaged in conspiring to create outcomes. That's their job. That's how they're successful. So now that it's illegal to propagandize in the United States, it doesn't surprise me that there's more and more products coming up in popular culture, more and more events in the news stream that seem to be, to my eye, to be subsidized. Let me give you some examples of that. I'm not talking about Boston right now. I'll get to that. We also talked earlier about infiltrators, right? And how they provoke violence. This is well established. So if we know that infiltrators by the police, NYPD, they've been documented, or other police forces, dress up like people they're not and provoke violence, why is it unthinkable that there might be spectacles that might drive an outcome in the news stream? Let me give you a couple of quick examples. And all I'm saying is we, unfortunately, and I have to say this to my fellow journalists as well, we've entered a time in which we need to be very skeptical about the news stream and look at it critically and ask for more verification and more inquiry. And that's just being good reporters. And it makes it like this. There's spectacle fed into the news media in China. There's spectacle fed into, like Chile. How did Pinochet, engage in his coup? He created photographs of a cache of weapons that the terrorists had, hidden. Was it real? Was it not? Most historians think it wasn't. I mean, this is like not unusual, in the process of creating a closed society. So if laws have made it legal to assassinate American citizens and legal to propagandize them, why should it be crazy or weird to think that that might be for a reason, right?